And then from letting your head roll from side to side, find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the ground. So Kayla, I'm very pleased you're with us now, because I saw you tried to join earlier, and anyway, so I'm pleased you're here now. We're just starting lying down, some twisty things. So when you've settled your head down, then if your legs are long, I'd like you to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And just come a few times to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. So this really familiar movement. And you can keep it quite small if you're feeling a bit creaky, or just use this movement to help you become more aware of how your body is feeling right now. So as your knees tilt to the right and to the left, that just helps you to become a bit more familiar with how your body is feeling this evening, right now. So once, twice more to each side. And then settle in the center for a moment and cross your arms over your chest. So we did this one last week. That's it. And now just come to rock, so that you're taking your elbows and your knees and your head all over to the left and then all over to the right. That's it. Very nice. So you're rolling a bit more sort of side to side across the back of your body, and keep it comfortable. You don't have to go far, but if you're enjoying doing a big movement, you can do. And what you're going to do in a moment is roll all the way over onto one side, and we're going to settle on one side, and I'd like you to have the side, your knees bent sort of at a right angle to your body, and I'd like you to have the side of your head on the floor. But if that's not comfortable, pop a cushion under the side of your head. So what I'm saying is, don't have your arm under the side of your head. That's it. Pop a cushion under the side of your head. Emma, you could slide your feet forwards a little bit on the floor. So yes, you want your knees at roughly a right angle to your chest, and you want to bring your feet forward, so the feet are sort of, beneath the knees. That's it. And you're lying on your side. You've got the side of your head on a cushion or the floor, and you've just got your arms quite relaxed. So the arms don't need to be straight out in front of you. And just have a breath or two here on your side. And then what you're going to start to explore is rolling from the side of your head towards the back of your head, and letting your top arm follow. So that's it. So as you start to roll towards the back of your head, your top shoulder is going to start to come closer to the floor behind you. And you can sort of let your top arm follow and come along, and then just sort of roll back again. So I'd just like you a few times to roll in and out, and try and keep your top arm as sort of soft and relaxed. So as you roll towards the back of your head, you could slide your top hand sort of up the bottom arm across the front of your chest. And depending how far you're going, you could be taking that top shoulder towards the floor behind you and the top arm towards the floor behind you. But just, be aware of how this feels in your top shoulder, and don't do something that feels that it's pulling or wrenching your shoulder. What might make this movement easier is to let your top knee either slide on the bottom thigh, sort of slide back along the bottom thigh, or even let that top knee lift a little bit away. That's it. And that might help you get your top shoulder more comfortably on the floor behind you. Good, that's it. And so you've got a choice now. So it might be that you just want to roll in and out of this movement, or it might be that you'd like to stay for a couple of breaths with your shoulder and arm resting on the floor behind you. And in which case, if you need to lift your knee to help make that more comfy, then absolutely do that. So we're thinking here about this sort of twisting movement where we're opening through the front of the chest. We're giving the weight of the top shoulder to the floor behind us. Good. If indeed we're staying there for a breath or two. That's it. And then what you're going to do from here is let yourself come onto your back by letting your top knee come up towards the ceiling. Yeah, so if you let your top knee come up towards the ceiling, that's it. And good, exactly. So you can roll onto your back. Very nice, lovely. And just come back to a breath or two. How does it feel? Perhaps bring your hands back to rest on the front of your body. How does it feel to come back to feeling the movement of your breath in your body? Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. So we've only done a little bit of movement, but already it might feel a bit, that our breathing might feel a bit freer, or we can sort of connect with it more easily. And then come back to, bending your knees, standing your feet on the floor, crossing your arms over your chest. Come back to rocking again from side to side, so with your arms crossed over your chest. That's so good. Everyone froze for a moment, and I was thinking, no one could. Yeah, well done, lovely. And what you're going to do from here is you're going to let yourself rock onto side 2 and settle yourself on side 2. So we can do that same movement on the other side. So remember again, if you want to put cushion under the side of your head, and if your bottom shoulder is feeling a lot of pressure from the floor, that would be an indication that you could do with a cushion under the side of your head. So remember, you've got your knees at roughly a right angle to your body. You let your feet slide forwards so they're in line with your knees. And then we start to explore the movement of rolling from the side of our head towards the back of our head. And we're trying to let the arms follow, the top arm follows, in a very easy and relaxed way. So we can be sliding that top hand up the bottom arm, if we like, across the front of our chest. We can start to explore bringing that top shoulder towards the floor behind us. How does it feel? That's it, exactly. Letting the top knee lift to help that movement. And just really making sure that we're not doing anything that wrenches that top shoulder. Good. And it's up to you. So you can move in and out of this twisting movement. You can come back onto your side. You can open that shoulder and arm out behind you. And if you like to stay in the twist with your arm on the floor behind you, and have a couple of breaths there, that might be quite nice. And what we're doing in twists is we're particularly working on finding some movement in the rib cage. And this is why sometimes when we come out of twists, that it feels a bit easier to breathe, because we've released some tension around the ribs. Good. So another breath or two. And what you're going to do from here, rather than rolling onto your back, is you're going to then just roll back onto your side. So stay on this side, but from having your arm on the floor behind you, just roll back onto your side and have 2 or 3 breaths on your side. And again, just gathering your attention into your breathing, seeing how does it feel when you come to focus on your breathing rather than the movements. And then from being on your side, we're going to come over. I just need to adjust my screen slightly. We're going to come over onto hands and knees. And I've got a little sequence we're going to do, which is going to take us from hands and knees up into standing, into some simple standing balances. So it's like a little sort of warm-up sequence. We're going to do it 3 times, and we do a different little balance each time. So your starting point is on hands and knees. So settle down on hands and knees. And when you're ready, you're going to be doing your cat movements. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. And do these a few times. We're going to come back to these in each cycle of the sequence. So we won't do loads and loads here because we're going to repeat them. So a bit of this rounding and dipping. You can also do a bit of your tail wagging movement. So when we imagine we have a tail and we're wagging it from side to side. So obviously if you have a dog or know a dog well, you know that it's a happy thing they do. Or it could be a fish swishing their tail. And then from here, once you've done a little bit of your tail wagging or tail swishing, we're going to come into dog pose. So big handprints on the floor, tucking your toes under. You're going to be exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels, coming up into dog pose and giving yourself a few breaths here. So when we've had a few breaths in this dog, we're going to walk on our feet back into, no, we're going to walk our hands into our feet, sorry. And we're going to be into a forward bend. And from the forward bend, we'll come into standing. So when you're ready, you can walk your hands in towards your feet and just arrive in this forward bend. So feel all of the weight in your feet. Let your head go. If you prefer to bend your knees and rest your elbows on your thighs, you can. And then as you exhale, roll up into standing or walk your hands up the fronts of your thighs if that's better. Good. And then you're going to stay at the back of your mat. And what I'd like you to do is these little movements where we come up onto the balls of the feet. Yeah, that's it. So do these a few times and see how it feels. Good. And we'll take this into a little simple balance. So we'll stay up on the balls of our feet and we'll let our arms float up towards the ceiling. Keep the shoulders soft and relaxed. Maybe find a point to focus your gaze on to help you feel a bit more steady. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Good. And then as you come back down, as you let your heels touch onto the ground, swoop your arms down and around back into a forward bend. Now from this forward bend, we're going to be coming down through a squat to the floor. So it's fine if your heels come up. So you're going to start to bend your knees straight forwards over your feet. At some point, you might get sort of stuck. And at that point, you might need to let your heels come up into your squat. Good. From your squat, you're going to roll through the tops of your feet, come onto hands and knees. And on hands and knees from here, actually, let's just first of all lengthen each leg out behind you. And then we're going to move into plank pose. So when you lengthen each leg out behind you, it's a good time to check that you've got enough mat behind you. And then we're going to settle down, shoulders over the hands, the wrists rather, lengthen one leg back, add the second leg in. See how it feels. Can you bring your attention to your breathing in plank and feel maybe 2, even 3 cycles of breath? It's not the easiest place to breathe in. From plank pose, when you've had enough of trying to breathe here, you're going to let your knees come down. You're going to fold back into child pose and you're going to have 3 cycles of breath here, where it's a bit easier to focus on your breathing. So let yourself soften and settle and feel the breath coming in and leaving you. That's nice. Good. Good. So child pose, feeling 3 cycles of breath. And then we're going to come back onto hands and knees and we're going to repeat that sequence again, but we're going to do a different balance. So when we end up in standing, we're going to do a different balance. So we're on hands and knees. We're back to doing some cat movements, rounding the back, dipping the spine. Good. And as we do these movements, just let your breath find its own rhythm. So it doesn't matter when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. You can just sort of allow your body to do that. You can pause in the center. You can do a bit of your tail wagging movements. So imagining we have our tail. If you like doing the one where you swing your lower legs from side to side, you could do that. And then we'll move on into dog pose. So tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels, picking your knees up off the floor, coming up into dog. And again, have a few breaths in dog pose. Probably say this every week, but I always like to have these big sort of Sighing breaths in dogs. And dogs often do that themselves when they're doing their stretches. They do sort of yawny things. And then from dog, walk your hands in towards your feet. So again, you're coming into a forward bend, and have a breath or two in your forward bend, just seeing how it feels. Resting your elbows on your thighs if you prefer. And then as you exhale, rolling up into standing, or walk your hands up the fronts of your thighs. Now stay where you are at the back of your mat. So I'm just going to sort of turn around and move to the center of mine so you can see what I'm doing. What you're going to do is just a little bit of swaying from side to side in your standing position. And you can close your eyes and just have a sense of which leg you're more drawn to standing on. We're obviously going to do this little balance on both sides, but you choose the easy side. So then open your eyes, bring your hands into prayer pose in front of your chest. We're going to do this very simple balance where you're just shifting your weight onto your chosen foot, and you're bringing your other foot to stand on top of that foot. So that's all we're doing, nothing very fancy. Got our hands in prayer pose, we've brought one foot to stand on the other foot. And then we just see, maybe here, what's it like to have 2-3 cycles of breath? How do we feel introducing this notion of balancing on one foot? Remember, it's fine if you have a wobble and come down. Good. Very nice. You can come down, have a little shake out. I'm also trying to block out that light with my head. Good. If you've had a little shake out, then bring your hands back into prayer pose. You're going to be shifting your weight again onto the other foot. Come up onto the ball of the foot you just stood on, and then bring that foot to stand on top of your standing foot, and see how it feels to settle on side 2. And if, like me, hopefully you did your easier side first, this side might feel a little bit more challenging. So what's it like to gather your attention into your breathing? To feel an in-breath move through you, to feel an out-breath move through you. Very nice. Come down, have a little shake out. And then we're going to make our way, as we did before, down through a forward bend and a squat, and then on into our plank pose. So you can start to roll down. Let yourself arrive in a forward bend. Again, it's quite nice to just see, how does it feel? How do the back of my legs feel? And then starting to bend your knees forwards over your feet. Letting your bottom come down, letting your heels come up if they need to. Good. So you're coming on into your squat. Emma, you've come into a forward, you've come into dog pose. You might want to go back into a forward bend, Emma, and down into a squat. You don't have to. So from your squat, you're rolling forwards through the tops of your feet. You're coming onto hands and knees. And then it's up to you. I quite like to then lengthen each leg out and turn behind me before I do my plank. Really stretching into each heel. Just feels quite nice after the squat. And then when you're ready, coming into plank pose and just seeing, can you feel the movement of your breath through you? So, can you breathe in plank pose? In some things like sun salute, sometimes we hold our breath in plank. But see, is it possible to feel your breath, to let yourself breathe here? Doesn't have to be too long. And then once more, let the knees come down, untuck your toes, fold your hips back over your heels, and have 2 or 3 cycles of quiet breath, settling in child pose. Resting your elbows on the ground. Feeling the movement of your breath through your body. Good. So one last time, we're going to come back onto hands and knees. We're going to do our cat movements, our tail wagging movements. So I think the connection seems not brilliant tonight, and I think when we were doing this in the last cycle of the sequence, everyone suddenly froze when I was suggesting you move your legs from your lower legs from side to side to do your tail wagging. So I'm doing a little bit of cat, rounding my back, dipping my spine. And then if you like for your tail wagging, you can do this variation where you swing your lower legs from side to side. So particularly if you miss that out because of the connection cutting out last time, you could do that. And then from hands and knees, we go on into dog pose. Maybe have a few breaths in dog before walking our hands in towards our feet. So seeing how dog pose feels. Again, each time we come into these movements, maybe something's released. Maybe it feels a bit more that we can settle here. Big exhalations. And then walking your hands in towards your feet, coming into a forward bend. Seeing how the forward bend feels. And then as you exhale, rolling up into standing. And we're going to do one more balance here. So again, you can stay at the back of your mat. I've just moved. Again, if you can remember, you could do a little bit of swaying, just choose which foot you're going to stand on. And whichever foot you're going to stand on first, bring that hand onto your breastbone. So we've got this point between the throat and the heart, Kurma Nadi. And this is a point that sort of promotes steadiness, physical as well as mental steadiness. The two are, of course, connected. And you're going to keep your hand on your breastbone. You're going to shift your weight onto your standing foot. And this time we're catching the top of our foot. We're letting our knee drop towards the ground. Now, if you can't comfortably catch your foot, you can catch your trouser leg. That makes it a bit easier. And also, if you're feeling wobbly, do you move to some sort of support, like a wall or something, if that helps. And then just, a couple of breaths here. We're letting our knee drop down towards the ground. We maybe feel the movement of our breath in our breastbone under our hand. Good. Don't stay there too long. Come down. Have a little shake out. We'll do the other side. So again, bring your hand back to the breastbone. This is a sort of, comforting place. Shifting your weight into the other foot. Catching the top of the foot you just stood on. Letting yourself settle. So we're doing sort of quite a quiet, simple version of this balance, and we'll come back and explore it and go a little bit further with it later. That's it. So as much as possible, we're letting the knee drop down to the ground. This one can be a bit of a challenge through the front of the thigh if you're someone who runs, walks, cycles a lot, but good to do. So we will do a bit more lengthening through there. Yes, come down, have a shake out. And one last time, we're going to be going down into our forward bend, squat, back onto hands and knees for one last plank pose. So when you're ready, at the back of your mat, rolling down. And do take a moment or two in your forward bend before you go into squat to see how it feels. We've done a few forward bends now, and we can just feel that the back of our legs are maybe lengthening a bit, and it's feeling a bit more comfortable maybe. And then you can start to bend your knees. It's quite nice to be in a sort of halfway house where you've got your knees a bit bent, your chest close to your thighs. And then you can start bending your knees more. Coming down into your squat. Good. And if you're someone for whom the squat is really helpful for your lower back, you can always have an extra breath or two here. If it's something you're less keen on, you can start to come forwards through the tops of your feet, coming onto hands and knees. Again, lengthening each leg out behind you in turn. This just gives us that chance to really lengthen through the back of the knee. And all of this, if your knees can be a bit creaky, the sort of bending the knees, straightening the knees is really helpful for them. Okay, so last plank pose. Settle your hands down, wrists under your shoulders. Lengthen one leg back, lengthen the other leg back. come into your plank pose. And again, just see, how does it feel? What happens if you bring your attention to your breathing? How easy is it to breathe in plank? And then from plank, let your knees come down. Fold back into child pose or into kneeling if you prefer. So just wherever you can just be quieter and more comfortable for 2 or 3 just sort of quiet cycles of breath where you feel the movement of your breath through your body. So good. Okay, so we're going to come and do a little bit of a twist and a lunge on hands and knees. I've turned around because so I can twist towards you, and then we'll go back into standing, and we'll do a bit more with the balances. So what I'd like you to do is from this sort of up kneeling position, is you're going to be stepping 1 foot forward. So you could have your fingertips on the floor to help you. You're going to be stepping 1 foot forwards. We're going to be doing this twist. So we're twisting towards the top leg, which is why I've arranged myself like this, so I'm not turning away from you. So we've got to feel steady at this initial point. I know we've done this one before. So we've got a bit of sideways space. You don't want to have your foot in front of your thigh or you'll feel terribly wobbly. So we're trying to feel steady in this slightly strange place, settling our weight through our knee and our front foot. And then we turn towards this front leg. So the opposite hand can rest on the thigh. Your back arm can either hang or the hand can rest on your pelvis. And what we're trying to feel here is really wide across the front of the chest, and also to let the back shoulder drop and soften. Good. So this is another movement where we're really trying to sort of move the rib cage, release a bit of tension there. And then from this twist, we're going to untwist. We're going to fold forwards over the front leg, and then you're going to tuck your toes under in your back foot and walk your back leg away to bring yourself into a lunge, and have a few breaths in your lunge. Now, if you look down at your front foot in lunge, your front foot should be sort of like your feet are in standing, sort of parallel, maybe the second toe pointing forwards. Now, I was playing around with this earlier today, and I haven't actually taught this before, but I wanted you to give it a go. What would it be like in lunge to turn your foot out a bit and to let your knee also turn out with your foot? Yeah, and just sort of see, you can still carry on leaning onto your hands. It might be that you take less weight. I don't know, you may take more weight into your foot. So if I turn around this way a bit, what we've done in our lunge is we've turned our front foot out. Rest into our hands. We can just see how that feels. It maybe feels a bit different in the hip joint. Okay, and then just sort of gently make your way out of that. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to start off with the twist, and then we'll move on into the lunge, and we'll try that lunge variation where we turn the foot out. So here's our starting point, settling again. Make sure you've got your sideways distance to help you feel steady. Back knee under the pelvis, front knee over the heel, turning towards your front leg. Front hand, the opposite hand resting on the front leg. This back arm is either just very heavy and relaxed, or it can rest on the back of your pelvis. Good. Have couple of cycles of breath, just feeling very wide through the front of the chest, trying to let your back shoulder drop and soften as you exhale. Good, yeah, and try to steady. It's not the easiest place to be steady, you know, particularly if that back knee is not so happy on the ground, which mine isn't. Okay, untwist, fold forwards over your front leg, tuck your toes under in your back knee and walk that back leg away. So come into a normal lunge first of all, where your foot is parallel, and see how that feels. And particularly notice, how does it feel around the hip joint, around the pelvis? Because then when you turn your foot out, if you want to, so remember, if you turn your foot out, you also let your knee turn out a bit. I'm leaning a bit more into my opposite hand, you know, whatever feels comfortable. So if you turn your foot out, how does that feel in your hip joints? It's a slightly different sort of movement, which we are going to explore a little bit more in standing. So you're going to ease yourself out of this lunge. We're going to come through dog pose and a forward bend back into standing. So nice big handprints on the floor, tucking your toes under, exhale, rocking your hips back over your heels. Coming up into dog, just enjoying your dog pose for a few cycles of breath, if that feels possible. Cool, bend the knees. Yeah. So how does dog pose feel now? Letting your breath come in, letting your breath leave you. Very nice. Of course, whenever you're ready, you can walk your hands into your feet. Into your forward bend. And then we can sink into our heels. Roll up into standing. Good. So we're going to actually, yes, I've got that on there. Okay, there. Hold on, sorry, I just wanted to check my, yes. So we are going to do this. The first thing I want you to do in standing is just this sort of very loose, easy, that's it, swinging twist where we're letting everything move. Okay. And yeah, just enjoying some sort of easy movement where we're not really having to focus on one thing in particular. We're just feeling the whole of our body in movement. So let your feet move on the floor. Lovely, a couple more times. Great. And then settle down. And we're just going to do, before we come back to doing some balances, we're going to do a couple more things to thinking, moving on from that lunge. So the first thing I'd like you to do is come up onto the ball of one foot. And then you're going to rotate. If you have your hands on your pelvis, can you then sort of rotate on the ball of your foot? That's it. So your knee is coming in, your knee is coming out. So when our knee is going out, it's a bit like that movement we were doing in the lunge. Good. And do the same thing on the other side. So swap on the other side, that's it. Onto the ball of the other foot, letting your knee come in and out. So this is external rotation in the hip joint, internal rotation. Good. Now, we're going to come into a forward bend and we're going to go down into another squat, but this time, once we're in the forward bend, we're going to turn our feet out and we're going to come into our squat with our feet turned out. So it's a bit like what we're doing in the lunge, but in both legs now. So start off, go into your forward bend with your feet parallel, how we normally have them. And then once you're in your forward bend, you're going to turn your feet out. And then you're going to see, how does it feel to come down into your squat? So your knees are bending over your feet. So your knees are bending out to the sides now. It might make it easier to keep your heels down for some of you. So we're trying now. So Maria, we're trying now to take off our knees wide to the side. Yes. So it might be I can't see whether you've taken your feet out, turned your feet out. So if you haven't turned your feet out in your squat, you might want to, because what we're trying to do here is just find this movement in our hip joints. Yes, exactly. You could bring your elbows onto the insides of your knees. Good. And encourage the knees to move out a little bit. Lovely. And then what we're going to do from here is we're going to go back into our forward bend with our feet turned out. And once we arrive in the forward bend, we'll bring our feet parallel again. So let's reverse that movement back into the forward bend. Bring the feet parallel. And then as you exhale, roll up into standing. Good. And give your legs a little shake out. So these movements take us on into tree pose, which is what we're going to move into now. So again, maybe just take a moment to decide which foot you'd like to stand on first. So it could be doing a little bit of swaying from side to side. So it might be the same foot that you stood on first for the last two balances, but it might not be. Now, so whichever foot you're going to stand on, you're going to shift your weight onto that foot. Come on to the ball of the other foot, and then let your knee, with your hands on your pelvis, let your knee turn out, but make sure your pelvis stays pointing forwards. Good. And then you're going to decide just where are you going to bring your foot? Ankle, or you could bring your heel above your knee, or you could catch your foot, your ankle, and bring your foot higher on your thigh. Okay. And then gather your hands into prayer pose in front of your chest. And see if you can settle there. And then if you feel steady and you want to, you can then let your arms grow up and wide, like the branches of the tree. Very nice. Keep the shoulders soft and relaxed. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Beautiful. Yeah, really amazing trees. Maybe gather your hands back into prayer pose. Who doing a much better job of me than I am of not falling out of this. Well done. Good. Very nice. Yeah, come back down. Whenever you're ready, have a little shake out. That's really fantastic. So for some of us, this external hip rotation is really easy, but for others of us, it isn't, and it can make tree pose really challenging. So again, hands on the rim of the pelvis. We're going to shift our weight onto the second leg, and again, start off with this movement. We're keeping our pelvis pointing forwards. We're letting our knee turn out to the side, and then we're going to bring our foot somewhere onto the inside of our standing leg. Ankle, knee, or up towards the thigh, the groin. And then gather the hands into prayer pose. Very nice. And just settle. See how it feels on this side. Gather your attention into your breathing. The arms can float up. You can feel nice and sort of alive in the fingertips, soft centers to the palms. Letting the breath flow in, letting the breath flow out. Keeping the shoulders relaxed. Again, we can bring the hands back into prayer pose at the heart for a final cycle or two of breath. Yes, well done. Well done, everyone. Brilliant. Yeah, really good. Really amazing balancing tonight. So we're going to do one more balance in standing. We're going to go a bit further with, so this balance we were doing, sorry about the slides, it was driving me mad. So this balance we were doing where we had one hand on the breastbone and we caught the top of our foot. Whichever, yeah, so give your arms and legs a shake out. And then you're going to start, so whichever foot you stood on first, come back and make that your first standing foot. And you're going to start by reaching up through that arm. So we're reaching up into that arm. This is reaching into the arm of the leg we're going to stand on, shifting our weight into that leg so we can peel the other foot off the floor and catch the top of the foot. Good. Once we've caught our foot, we can let our knee drop and we can bring our hand down to our breastbone again. And then what you're going to do from here, and I'm just going to turn around so you can see, it's from this point, you're then going to start to reach back with your foot and forwards with your arm. And see if you can come to a sort of expansive place. And you might try a couple of times. You might go forwards, you might come back. And then can you reach forwards with your arm, backwards with your foot? And could you find an expansive place, where you can breathe 2 or 3 cycles of breath, reaching forwards and back, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave. Very nice. Good. Yes, and do feel in this one, you can let your pelvis turn. And it's fine, because we're moving into this quite dramatic movement, we're possibly more likely to topple out of it. And that's fine. So if you sort of topple out and then you want to go back and just try, where can we go to from here? So from here, what are the possibilities? Reaching the arm and leg forwards and back. Good. Yeah, and it might just be for a moment that we try that, because this, but it can feel quite nice to, to do something big. Let's try the other side. So you're going to start reaching up through the other arm. That's our first point, reaching up through the other arm, shifting the weight into the other leg, and then peeling the foot off the floor, sort of sneaking our foot off the floor, catching the top of our foot. Good, and then our hand comes down to our breastbone. Just letting our knee drop to the floor, and then from here, where we're sort of in our centre, quite contained, then we're reaching forwards and backwards. Where can we go to feel sort of big, expansive? We might reach forwards, we might come back, we might try reaching forwards and back again, and then maybe having 2 or 3 breaths. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And again, it's fine if you, it's fine to feel in these ones that you have a bit of a wobble. You might want to try again, come back to that sort of starting point, hand on the breastbone. What happens if you reach back with your leg, forwards with your arm? Where can you go to? Lovely. Well done. Excellent. Yes, come down, have a shake out. So we're going to make our way down through forward bend from the back of the mat, down into dog pose. You could do some one-legged dog poses if you liked. They might feel quite nice after that last standing balance. So yes, forward bend dog pose rather than forward bend squat. So rolling down into your forward bend. And this is the last forward bend we're going to do tonight. So maybe do have a couple of breaths there. Just really seeing how does your body feel now in a forward bend after having come in and out of a few. And then from your forward bend, big hand prints, walking your hands forwards into dog pose. And let yourself arrive for a couple of breaths in a normal dog pose before you start to think about lifting one leg. And when you do lift a leg, you could lift your leg with your knee bent, you could lift your leg with the knee straight. You've got all these different options. If you do lift your leg, do you keep your pelvis level? Do you roll your pelvis? So it's just a really little sort of exploration. You can bend your top knee. Yeah. So if you do lift one leg in dog, what could you do with that raised leg? And we don't stay that long on either side if we've got one leg off the ground in dog. It's bringing your leg up, it's exploring a few different movements, having a few breaths, but not making it into an endurance. Good. And from here, you're going to be folding into child pose whenever you're ready. So you can do a bit more dog, a bit more one-leg dog, depending how lively you're feeling. And then folding down into child. Or again, if you prefer to be in kneeling. Come to either child or kneeling, just somewhere where you can really settle. Settle, soften, quieten. That's it. Rest your elbows, let your shoulders feel soft and relaxed. Feel the movement of your breath through your body. Just bring your attention for one last cycle of breath, where in your kneeling or child pose. So feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. And then from here, we're going to slither forwards onto our bellies. So once you've arrived on your belly, I really don't mind what you do with your arms. I mean, I always tend to put one hand on top of the other and rest usually my cheek on the back of my hands, but you don't have to do that. And the first thing you're going to do once you've arrived on your belly and organised your hands is to give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. So yeah, and that just helps us to settle a little bit more. And then we're actually going to start by doing a few things with our feet. And this again helps us to settle on our belly. So what I'd like you to do is maybe start with your right foot. And a few times tuck your right toes under and then untuck them. Tuck your right toes under, untuck them. Okay. And when you've done that a few times, then you're going to lift your right foot off the floor a little bit by bending your knee, and then just drop the foot down onto the floor. So you don't want to lift it too high because you won't want to let it drop. It's almost like you're tapping the floor with the top of your foot. Okay, and then move on to the left foot and do the same thing. So a few times tuck your toes under and then untuck them. Tuck the left toes under, untuck them. Tuck the left toes under, untuck them. And then a few times tapping the floor with the top of your left foot. You bend your knee a little bit, you pick the left foot off the floor and then you let it drop back down again. You can do it quickly or slowly. Okay, and then let your legs go. Just leave your legs there. Give your pelvis another wiggle if you like. And then what you're going to do from here is slide your arms forwards a little bit. So can you have your forehead on the ground and your arms either side of your head? So your arms are in a sort of big circle around your head, either side of your head. And then you're just going to see, how does it feel to sink down into your elbows and forearms and lift your head off the ground? And then come down again, and just do this a few times. Sinking into your forearms and elbows, lifting your head, and then bringing your forehead back down again. It's probably helpful to do this movement, this lifting movement, when you exhale. So when you exhale, you sink down into forearms. I just need to let Kayla back in. So if you like, the next time you sink down and you lift your head, you could stay there with your head lifted for a breath or two and see how that feels. Kayla, I think you're returning. And then fold back again into child pose. Just so come off your belly for a moment and fold into child pose. Just to, so if you're not so keen on being on your belly, it's quite nice to come out into child pose. And then we're going to go back onto our belly in a moment. So come out into child pose. Have 2 or 3 cycles of breath in child pose. You can let your lower back lengthen out. It's interesting to see whether, where are you happier? Are you happier on your belly or are you happier in child pose? When we come back onto our belly, we're going to see how it feels to do just 3 Cobra poses. And if you're not sure, look at me. Cobra it can be a little bit challenging. It's where we have the hands on the floor under the shoulders and we exhale. We might lift a little, we might lift more. Yeah. So, and then in between our cobras, we're really going to wiggle our pelvis. So you're going to come back down onto your belly, really wiggle your pelvis. You've got your hands planted on the floor beneath your shoulders. Now this one, you just want to be careful that your lower back is happy, so don't go too far. And as you exhale, you're going to sink down. So make sure your elbows are not on the floor. So you sink down into your hands and just, yeah, what's it like to come up and then come back down? If it's super easy, you could obviously stay up there and breathe, but I find this one quite challenging. Wiggle your pelvis before you do another one and then come up again. Exhaling down into your hands. What's it like to come up? Back down again, give your pelvis another wiggle. And then we'll do one last one. And if you feel that you want to try and stay there for a cycle of breath, you can. Exhaling. Oh. Yes, I won't stay there too long. And then from here, roll onto your back. And when you arrive on your back, just either do nothing, or if there's something you feel that you want to do with your legs. Yeah. So when you arrive on your back, what do you want to do with your legs? Oh, and it might just be you arrive on your back and you just, yeah, that's it. So Emma, yes, all these things are nice. Knees bent, feet standing on the floor. Some of you have got knees folded into your chest. Got a bit of happy baby going on, Beata. Yes. These things. So really whatever the back would like after Cobra. And then also just give yourself a few quiet breaths. You know, how does it feel to be on your back? Maybe rest your hands on the front of your body. How does it feel to come back to feeling the movement of your breath in the front of your body after we've done all this other movement? We've got a couple of things we're going to do lying down, but let's just come back to our breathing before we do them. Just, yeah, how does it feel? You can ask yourself how after all this movement, is it a bit easier to settle with your breath? Is it a bit easier to feel your breath? Does your breathing feel any more fluid, any freer within you? You could come back to letting your head roll to the right and to the left. So some of these movements that we probably do every yoga class, there's this sort of pleasure we get from doing familiar things, which is not to be underestimated. So just this very nice easing the head from side to side. And from rolling your head from side to side, find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the floor. And if your legs are long, you're now going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And see how it feels a few times to come to tilting your knees to the right and to the left. That's it. Just find a movement that's really enjoyable and pleasant for you. It may be small, it may be big, it may be slow, it may be quick. Very nice. Pause in the center. You're going to fold one knee into your chest and then let that knee come out to the side and bring your ankle to rest on your thigh close to your knee. That's it. So slide the ankle, make sure the ankle's resting towards the knee rather than towards the groin. That's it, good. And then you're going to do some rocking on your standing foot with your legs in this position. So Emma, when you're ready, we've got our sort of ankle to our knee. One ankle is coming towards the knee. You can, that's, and rocking from side to side. Now, you can always move your standing foot so it's a bit more centered if that feels better. That's very nice. So you can do rocking with your legs in this position, and you can also pause in the center. You can pick your standing foot off the floor and you can catch your hands around the back of your thigh. That's it. This is the left leg thigh. You'd catch your hands around. That's it. And have a few breaths folded in there. So we get this nice sort of stretch through the think it'd be the right leg, buttock. And we also get this nice feeling of lengthening out through the lower back here. And you can rock a little bit when you fold it in as well, if that feels nice. And from here, whenever you are ready to release your legs, you can take them up to the ceiling, give them a little shake out. Always nice. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So your right foot is now going to stand on the floor and your left knee is going to come, that's it, in towards you, then out to the side. And your left ankle on your right thigh, close to your knee. And come back to that rocking side to side on your standing foot. So again, remember, if you prefer to move your standing foot so it's a bit more centered, you can. You don't have to. That's just an option, personal choice. So a little bit of rocking from side to side, and again, whatever works best for you, whatever you like best. A bit of rocking from side to side. You can pause in the middle. You can fold. Pick your right foot off the floor. Catch your hands. Hang on, Emma. You want to keep your ankle on your thigh. Keep your left ankle. I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe this is because of your hip. Yeah, ignore me. Yes. So you folded in. The rest of you folded in. You've caught your hands around the back of your right thigh. And yes, very nice, Maria. You could be rocking a bit from side to side. And whenever you want to release your legs, you can take them up towards the ceiling. You can give them a shake out. You can let your arms join in. This is always one of the things that inevitably cheers me up, however grumpy I'm feeling. Lovely. And we're now going to settle down. This is a time to put on blankets and socks if you haven't done so already. And we'll just really come to focusing on our quiet breath. Lovely. So lie however you're most comfortable, with your knees bent or your legs long. If you've got a bed or a sofa you wanted to put your lower legs on, you could always do that. And then just decide whether you want to have your hands on the front of your body or your arms resting on the floor beside you. Either are good. And we'll start with, I think, maybe 3 those big sighing breaths. So we let the breath come in through the nostrils and we exhale with a big, big sigh. And as you let that sigh out, give the weight of your body to the ground. One more time. And then just see if you can let go of controlling your breathing and just let your breath find its own rhythm through your body. But keep your attention, at least for maybe 3 cycles of breath, just focused in on the feeling of your breath in your body. And when I do this, I always think about being close to my breathing and sort of, being close to my breath, holding it in the forefront of my awareness. But just also letting it be, trusting the intelligence of your body to breathe as you need to right now. And trusting that you don't need to change anything, that your breath is exactly as it should be. And you could let your awareness expand outward through your body. You could have a sense of the back of your head in contact with the ground. You could maybe feel the back of with your shoulders resting back towards the ground, your elbows on the ground, back of the pelvis resting on the ground. You've got this sort of width of the pelvis. And then all the way down to your heels in contact with the ground, both if your legs are long and if your knees are bent. You can maybe notice the air on any bare skin, depending how wrapped up we are. Be aware of the light, the warmth or the cooler temperature of the air. Be aware of the presence of other people in your house, other maybe animals in your room, other people in your street. Aware of sounds. And into all of this, I'm going to add 3 sounds of the singing bowl. So if you allow yourself to carry on resting until we reach the silence at the end of the 3rd sound. So thank you very much, everyone. Take your time. I'm hoping, Ruth and Kayla, we've still got you here, even though I can't see you.